Are you ready for an argument? Because I think that's where this video might be headed. So I test golf clubs for a living. So in my opinion, I like to think I know a little bit about them. So in this video, I've picked out my 10 favorite clubs of all time. I've picked 2 in each category. So I've picked 2 putters, 2 wedges, 2 sets of irons, 2 fairway woods, and 2 drivers. And I am intrigued to know what you think about my choices. So I've teamed up with Golf Clubs for Cash, one of the leading retailers of pre-loved equipment. I've put all the links to their various channels down in the description below, so make sure you go and check those guys out because they've provided me with some absolute gems to have a little look at today. Let's get started, and I want to show you my first putter. So my first choice, and you can probably see it already in my hands, it's one of the most distinctive looking putters of all time. It's the original Odyssey 2-ball. Now I can still remember in around 2001, 2002 when this came out. It was radical in terms of its look, but when you thought about it, it was pretty obvious. What better way to line up a golf ball than by having an extra 2 golf balls on the back and creating that visual for the golfer at address. It was truly a phenomenon, and those people who really struggled with alignment around that time found this an absolute godsend. So while this is a bit of a historical pick, it's worth looking around on all of the tour events you might be watching on TV, and you'll still see this type of head model in heavy usage. You'll see these 2 white balls still knocking around. The head shape may have changed, the insert may have changed a little bit, but the whole concept of this 2-ball you'll still see in really heavy usage. Now I've picked this one up for some great value. This is only $65.99. It's in really, really good condition. There's barely a ding on it. It's also got my favorite insert of all time, the white hot insert. And again, when you think about this insert, it's successful, but it's obvious success. What better way to create a good cohesive feel than use an insert of the same material that's on the ball, so you haven't got any of those conflicting feels, and it just creates a really nice impact sensation. I stand by this choice vehemently. This is one of the greatest putters of all time. Next up is a real big hitter, and this is arguably, in fact not even arguably, the most copied golf club of all time. This is the Ping Answer putter. Now, if you look around any website of most golf manufacturers, you'll see some derivative of this Answer style putter with the plumber's neck, the bumpers, and this head shape. It really was a phenomenon. This putter was first designed in 1966 by Carsten Solheim of Ping, and it was the first putter to really offer perimeter weighting, so moving some of this weight to the side to add stability on those off-center hits. Now this putter has chalked up, it says on the Ping website, over 500 tour wins, including 19 men's major championships. And that's not even counting the copy wins of putters like Newport 2 from Scotty Cameron, Odyssey number 2s that have won multiple majors and tournaments with the same shape. This is the winningest putter of all time. Now I could sit here and try and list off all of the people that have won tournaments with a Ping Answer putter or even a derivative thereof, but this video needs to end at some point, and I would be here all day listing your Seves, your Tiger Woods, etc, etc. It has been used by almost everyone in the game. Now I've picked this up for a really ridiculous price. $38.99 from Golf Clubs for Cash. You can own a piece of history that has won more golf tournaments on a professional level than anything else. So that was my putters, and we're going to stay in the short game now and on to some wedges. And I couldn't mention a wedge without mentioning the modern day boss of the wedge category, from Mr. Bob Vokey. All of the Vokey design wedges have been incredibly successful from Titleist. The tour usage just speaks for itself. The numbers I see from tour reports week after week are pretty overwhelming even to this day. And a sign of a good wedge or any good golf club is the fact that it doesn't actually have to change much, because what you had to begin with was pretty good. But I've had to pick a favorite because that's what this video is all about, and my favorite of the Vokey range of all time so far, at least, has been the SM4 when they started to get into that spin mill technology. Might be a nostalgic pick because this is when I was playing an awful lot of competitive golf, but I really love the look, the finish, and the spin available from this particular SM4 wedge. Like I said, one of the great signs about a wedge or any golf club is the lack of change, and you can put this wedge down now up against an SM10, the latest variety, or any of the last SM9, SM8, SM7, and you still get a very, very similar head profile and some of the same sole geometry. Now this one really surprised me. For a wedge that's still in such great condition, particularly face-wise, which I always look for in a wedge because you don't want too much sort of groove degradation, it's 40 quid, £40.99 for a 60-degree wedge in great condition from Bob Vokey. You can't say fairer than that. So staying in the wedges, now many of you watching this won't even remember a time before Bob Vokey's dominance, but I can assure you there was a time pre-1999. If you were a player, you were probably playing a wedge by Roger Cleveland, and my favourite of the Cleveland wedges of all time was the Tour Action Reg 588. Now I just pulled this out and showed it to Dan behind the camera, and we were both looking at it and saying this could go on the shelf now and not look out of place. It's such a classy, simplistic looking wedge with a beautiful finish. And it was used by some of the best players in the game. Ernie Els, who was widely regarded as having one of the best bunker games and short games of all time, was a big Cleveland user. And a little known fact is Tiger Woods in 1997, when he burst onto the scene at the Masters, he had 2 Cleveland wedges in the bag that week. Now, back then there wasn't that much on offer in terms of bounce or grind options, so a lot of the work that you'd see on a sole was done on a tour van or on the grinding wheel manually. You just kind of got what you got, but that's how it was back then. But again, as I said, condition-wise, this is absolutely fantastic, as you'll see from the images up in front of you. And to be able to pick up a wedge in this condition that looks this great for $31.99, well, that's pretty extraordinary to me. Right, sorry to interrupt, but if you are enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button and comment down below. Do you think I'm going wrong? Have I missed anything really obvious? I'd love to hear what you think are the best clubs of all time. So that's the short game taken care of for me. So we're going to up the ante now and move into some longer stuff with some irons. And the first iron I want to talk to you about is the Mizuno TP9. Now, that's one for the purists. Don't shoot me here. I know this isn't going to be a mass appeal sort of an iron, but I couldn't put everything in a game improvement category. I couldn't put everything in the better player category. So I've tried to spread it out a little bit. And this is a really iconic iron. So let me tell you why. So this came from 1986, and Mizuno just led the way with precision forging. And the feel you get from these irons when I've been hitting them away is just like, I know it's cliche, but it's like butter. It just melts into the face, and it's softer than anything I've hit, certainly modern day. It's really impressive off the face. One thing to note from the visual, there's quite a lot of offset. Now, a lot of offset has been taken out of blades that you see in the modern day market. It seems to be a modern day player preference to see less of that hosel in front of the ball, but there is quite a prevalent offset here, and they've got a really boxy toe shape, which I love. It looks really familiar to me, having looked down on that for quite some time. Now I've picked a 3-iron to pitching wedge setup here for $127.99. And to give you some idea of the type of player that played with this iron, we had the likes of Sandy Lyle, Olazabal, Faldo won a couple of majors with a TP9, so this really was one for the purist and the elite ball strike, which might not tick the box for all of you. So let's have a look at another set that I've chosen, which might do a little bit more for you. So my next one is from Ping, and it is the Ping i2, and I've gone for the copper beryllium model. So this was hugely sought after when I was a junior. I think mainly because of the visual. We've been so used to chrome or steel, that kind of silver finish. So to just see this lovely soft brown coppery finish sat in a pro shop, it just had everyone mesmerized. And it wasn't just the look that sort of took people's fancy. The performance of these clubs was incredible from a game improvement standpoint. Now, they weren't the first perimeter weighted golf clubs around there. So Ping before that had the 69 Balnamic iron. So that was really the first time that engineers decided to move weight around the back of the cavity to help stabilize things on off-center hits. But this was the one that really caught the attention of a lot of players and went in so many bags, whether that was at club level or even on tour level. So once again, I'm not going to try and list all the names that played these Ping i2 irons because we would be here all day, but one name that you will certainly recognize that you might not know was a Ping i2 player during his junior days was the great man himself, Tiger Woods. Now, he didn't play the copper beryllium version that I've got here, he played the steel version. But it took me a little bit by surprise when I was doing the research for this video, because I'm so used to seeing Tiger with a small forged shiny chrome blade that he's played for the bulk of his career. So I found it really interesting that he played a lot of his junior career with a more perimeter weighted club. Now I've picked this setup for £273.99, which I think is really good, but I want to know what you think. Would this set make your list of the greatest irons of all time? And do you think that $273.99 represents good value for money? Okay, so let's move up the scale now and into some longer stuff. We're going into fairway woods, and I've picked a fairway wood from Callaway because Callaway back in the sort of mid to late 90s were absolutely dominating the fairway wood market. And I think a few of you at home might be screaming at the television now about the Warbird. Well, I've gone a little bit past Warburton, I've picked out the Callaway Steelhead. This is my absolute favorite Callaway fairway wood of all time. They took all the technology and aesthetic package that made the Warbird so popular both at retail and on tour, but just modernized it a little bit, and I thought they absolutely nailed the aesthetic here and nailed the feel in particular. Now, it sat in that era when I was watching and playing an awful lot of golf, and two of my favorite players played this particular fairway wood. Colin Montgomery, I used to love watching him pick fairway woods off with that gentle fade, and he actually used it in driver as well. And Annika Sorenstam was also one of my big favorites, and I remember her playing at the US Open with these fairway woods. I think she had 3, 5, 7 and possibly 9 at the time, and her green in regulation stats were off the charts. I used to love watching her hit these fairway woods. Now, I've picked this one up at $19.99, less than £20 for an absolute all-time classic. I'd be intrigued to know if you've ever played it and what you thought of it. Okay, and next up in fairway woods, and this might be my favorite of all of the clubs that I've picked, truth be told. This is an absolute banger. This is a TaylorMade Rocket Balls fairway wood. Now, this came around in around 2012 and took massive fanfare from TaylorMade, really heavily behind the marketing here. And the marketing was all about this little speed slot on the bottom, which they were claiming created exceptional ball speeds, and actually marketed it. I think 17 yards extra was the tagline at the time. And a lot of the time, this sort of marketing can be a bit hit and miss, but this was very much hit. These things were absolute rocket ships. They came off so quickly, and so many other manufacturers quickly adopted this kind of channel behind the face to get that extra flexing and added it to their fairway wood designs, which allowed them to try and keep up with what TaylorMade were doing. This fairway wood actually made me question whether I needed driver for a while. I had it in the Tour Spoon version, which was 13 degrees, I think, and it was so hot and so strong that I wasn't really gaining much with driver. Now, this is around the time where TaylorMade started to really dominate the fairway wood category. That year in particular, 2012 and 2013, every bag you seem to look in seemed to have this little white headed fairway wood that we hadn't seen for a little while. It was really distinctive, and whether they were Titleist players, Callaway players, you saw so many of these in bags all over the global tours. Now, the one I'm talking about here is the Stage 1 version. They went on to have a sequel, as so many great things do, with the Rocket Ball Stage 2, but for me, the original was absolutely the best. And believe it or not, you can pick this absolute classic fairway wood up for just $63.99. Right, into the big stuff. Now, this one might be a little controversial for some of you, and contrary to the fairway wood I've just spoken about from TaylorMade, this one was actually a sequel. I've got the 2017 TaylorMade M2 driver. Now, this one's very personal for me. You might have a lot of other things going on in your head, so you might be thinking, why the TaylorMade M2? Well, I use this for 4 or 5 years, and I test drivers for a living. And quite honestly, I don't know that I've ever played a driver that I like as much as this. The looks, I love the two-tone head, the black and white crown, the shaping was perfect. It had, just for me, the optimal combination of penetrating ball flight to optimize distance, but with enough spin to help you hold your line. Also, heel and toe strikes, I just found them gobbled up so easily from this head, and it was so widely used on tour. And one other thing that I think will back up my claim here is Rory McIlroy, who I think many would argue is the greatest driver of a golf ball of all time, has said on a few occasions, if he wasn't contractually obliged with anything else, he would probably still be playing the TaylorMade M2 driver. So I don't think I need to give any other explanation other than that. That's why this has made my list. And my final choice in driver is an absolute classic from Callaway Golf, and the beautifully named Great Big Bertha. Now, this was Callaway's first ever foray into titanium, getting away from steel. So what it allowed Callaway to do is make the head significantly bigger, because they were using a lighter material but was stronger, so they weren't sort of compromising any of the integrity of the head. Now, back in the day, you put this down behind the ball and people were just aghast at the size of the head. Yet when you put it down nowadays, not that long later, it actually looks pretty tiny. This looks like one of the mini drivers you see from today. Now, From a performance point of view, it stood out from the ball speed and the sound. It was quite a high-pitched, tinny noise. And just getting into that titanium market really caught a lot of players' attention. One of the things I love most about it, and we speak about this on the Kickpoint podcast with my co-host Dan, names of clubs. So often now we go into the sort of scientific numbers and letters and trying to create something clever. We'll just give it a good, fun, characterful name. Like we went from Big Bertha to Great Big Bertha to Biggest Big Bertha. It does exactly what it says on the tin, and I love that about it. From a performance point of view, there were a few standout features of this. The titanium, as I said, being very light and very strong, offered some really high ball speed, so people started to hit the ball a little bit further around this time. But what stood out for me was just the sheer size comparative to what was available on the market at that point. When we gave people more head volume, confidence went up, and when confidence goes up, people started to swing at the ball a little bit more freely, not fearing the heel and toe strike as much because they had so much mass behind the ball. So not only did that free up the player to be able to swing more confidently and quicker at the ball, not fearing the heel and toe shots quite so much, it actually freed the manufacturers up to go longer in shaft length, again for the same reasons, because it wasn't so imperative that people were hitting it bang off the sweet spot. So they could give up a little bit of control from a shorter shaft to extend the shaft and increase swing speeds, which again in turn help people hit it a bit further. With all that being said and all the pioneering technology I'm talking about here, I was pretty staggered to see this one available for $29.99. So there it is, that's my list of what I believe are the 10 best clubs of all time. Now I said at the start of the video, get ready for an argument, and I'm sure you sat at home, a lot of you, furious that I've missed out your favourite club, and I do want to hear about it. Pop it down in the comments below. I really want to know what you think I've missed that's very, very obvious and what you would change. Now I've really enjoyed the little trip down memory lane. I think as much as anything else, the most outstanding part about this is the value on offer. We've seen drivers under £30. We've seen full sets of irons under £130. So if you're willing to look and go on websites like Golf Clubs for cash, you can really find some intriguing stuff. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.